Hello everyone, welcome back. I've been seeing a ton of videos and a ton of discussions lately talking about should you mod your guitar, should you not mod your guitar, does it hurt the resale value, all that kind of stuff, and I thought let's talk about that today. And while we do it, let's mod a guitar. We just got back from Nashville, Tennessee doing the Nashville Guitar Show, and we are home for a few weeks before we go on to the Dallas Guitar Show, which is coming up way sooner than I realized. And in this interim period, I had a few personal projects I wanted to work on, and one of those was this. This is a guitar that I just acquired from a friend in a personal trade. This is a 2000 Fender American hardtail Strat that comes stock with Seymour Duncan humbuckers. Obviously, who doesn't love some Seymour Duncan humbuckers? This is very Rivers Cuomo, very Weezer, which is great, but that's not really something that I need right now. I don't probably need any guitars right now, for being honest. What I did want to do was put together a guitar that had the typical Strat single coil pickups and a hardtail bridge. So that's what we're gonna do with this guitar. So why are we modding this guitar? Why not just go buy a Strat with single coil pickups? That's obviously not super hard to find. And the reason is this is hardtail, and Fender doesn't offer that many American-made hardtail Strats or Japanese-made hardtail Strats. Since I was able to acquire this one in a trade and not have to like pay anything for it, it just made sense to make this the way I want it rather than tracking down like another one of these and having to pay out of pocket for that. So it made more sense to just kind of do this. It's so rare that Fender does like a traditional Strat, but then also does the hardtail bridge. I don't know why, I wish they did more of them. When we get them in, they sell very quickly as they're hard to find guitars. If you do want to do a hardtail Strat straight from Fender, the best option is to go through their mod shop, which is great. Would have loved to do that, but for me, it made more sense to just work with something that I could acquire easily. So let's talk about the plan for this guitar. I want to take the humbuckers out. I want to put in single coil pickups. I've been fortunate enough to receive these Jimmy Wallace Hot 60s Stratocaster pickups, which as the name would imply, they're very true to a 60s Strat set, but a little bit hotter than you would get with a proper vintage guitar. I know he also has a set that's like a lot truer to a vintage one, but this is kind of like a hot rodded version of that, which sounded really appealing to me. So this is the ones that I wanted to check out. We want to put these pickups in this guitar. As well as changing the pickups, I also wanted to put locking tuners on this guitar. This just has your regular Fender USA tuners. We're gonna put locking tuners on it. So let's talk about how we're gonna do that, and in my opinion, like what the best way to do that is to kind of preserve your guitar while getting to make it the way that you want it. As I kind of started with on the video, I definitely wanna talk about modding your guitar, what's important to kind of do to maintain the guitar's originality, what's safe. And we'll kind of talk about that as I do each step of this process that I'm gonna go through here. But I will give a preface up front that at the end of the day, it's your guitar. If you bought a guitar and you wanna mod it and do whatever you want with it, if you wanna route your guitar, if you wanna repaint it, you wanna do whatever, it's your instrument at the end of the day. So do whatever you want and enjoy it. But a lot of people do always ask like, hey, I wanna do this to my guitar, but just in case I wanna sell it later, or maybe if I don't like the mods, what should I keep in mind? I wanna talk about this both from the perspective of, as a shop that buys and sells guitars, the best way to receive a guitar that's not totally original, or like from my perspective, if I had a guitar in the personal collection that I knew I might wanna sell later, kind of what the best ways to go about things are to not like hurt the resale value on it. I will say, there's certain mods and upgrades you can do to guitars that don't necessarily hurt the value. They might actually help the value if it's something that another player finds really attractive, but just kind of every mod and every situation is gonna be a little different. At the end of the day, these are all used guitars, and it just kind of comes down to what somebody is willing to pay for something. It's usually the easiest to find somebody that wants to buy an all original example, but maybe you'll do a bunch of mods to your guitar and somebody else will have the same taste as you and be really excited about that they don't have to go do all that on their own. Now, that doesn't mean dropping on $500 worth of parts to your guitar will add $500 in value, but sometimes you'll find somebody that will enjoy those upgrades you did. Let's get these strings off and take this pickguard off. Now we got the strings off, time to take the guard off. And this is the first thing that I want to talk about. If you are modding a Strat or something similar that has the electronics mounted on the guard, I have a really big recommendation that while it might be tempting to say, I'm just gonna pull the pickups out, throw them back on the same guard, one thing that I have found is really convenient to do is to actually just replace the entire guard with all the electronics. In this case, I've already got a bit of a wiring harness going here for the pickups I'm about to drop in here. So this way, if I wanted to go back to humbuckers, I don't have to rewire the entire guard. It's just a matter of resoldering a few wires and dropping the old guard back on. This also works out if I wanted to sell this guitar and wanted to drop the original pickups back on. We could sell that at a flash photo gear as that the guitar is original, aside from a few solder points being touched up. That's definitely something that I think would be appealing to most buyers. I always like to say, like, if we had to do anything, I want to note that, even if it's just touching solder points up that might not be objectively noticeable, the more transparent you can be, the better. When you tell people stuff like that, I think it also insinuate a bit more trust, because now it's like, hey, I'm telling you things that I don't necessarily have to because there's no evidence otherwise. So I think anytime that you have an opportunity to be transparent, I think that speaks volumes. Whether you are, an individual or you're a dealer or whatever, it's just, who doesn't like working with somebody that is giving you all the information, good and bad? Obviously, in a case like this, there's not really a way to use the same guard, so it's quite obvious that you'd replace the pick guard. Let's say that you're going from one set of single coils to another. I know it's a luxury, but I would still get a whole nother guard and a whole nother set of pots and switch and everything. So that way you could, drop stuff back and forth without too much hassle. And two, if you want to leave your, your new stuff in when you sell it, it's really, really helpful to have those original parts. I know for us, one of the biggest things is if something comes in with different pickups installed, we understand, you're trading your guitar and you might not feel like doing all the work to put the original pickups back in. But if you can include those originals, that's really helpful for us, as we can now get it, as close to original as we can, and then maybe save those pickups for another project. So if you want to check out any of our inventory, you can check it out at aflashfootygear.com or affog.com. We might even have a QR code for you right here if you want to click on that or scan that. And yeah, I think we got some cool stuff, so check it out if you have a moment. This is like one of the most ideal routes you can have for a Strat, as you can do HSH. There's some Strats will see like the full swimming pool route, which is great too, but a lot will just be routed for a single. So if you're doing the opposite of what I was doing here and you wanted to go from single coils to humbuckers, sometimes you'd have to route for that. I will note that routing and stuff like that kind of does affect the resale a bit more than something like we're doing here does, but it's really convenient. A lot of the American stuff is already routed for humbuckers, so we love that. And that makes things convenient, because once again, if I want to, I can make this the way that it was again. So on here, we have 4 wires that I'm going to need to desolder and leave with the guitar that are then going to mount onto our new pickguard here, which is going to be the white from the output jack and then the 3 grounds from the ground here. If you've never soldered before, it is a whole learning process, and we're not gonna get into all that today. But I will give one small pro tip, which is using these solder stations is a lot better than using the stick solder guns. I know some people have great luck with those. I've never had great luck with them. They don't always get as hot as these. And so having something that you can change the temperature on is really, really helpful. Also, having just the right tools in general will make your life easy. Stuff like having like a solder remover like this, that's not like the cheapest possible one, definitely helps. This one's metal and does a lot better job than the cheap plastic Amazon ones. Having the right tools for the job will usually make the job go a lot smoother. If you are starting with soldering, I wouldn't start on something that's super valuable or something that has a lot of sentimental value. You gotta learn and start somewhere, and your first few projects might not be as good as the ones you do down the road. So start on something that's a little more low risk. There's lots of great resources on the internet for how to get really good at soldering. I think it's a great skill to have. Now we've got our guard totally separate, ready to be dropped back on this guitar or dropped on another guitar if the occasion arose. If I haven't made it clear enough already, please, if you're doing this, save your original guard, save your pickups. I know for most people watching this, that's the most obvious thing ever, but as a shop that takes in a lot of modified guitars, you would be astounded how much stuff that we receive where the original parts are just missing. I get it. Sometimes it's nice to if you have a guard like this with pickups, you can resell this and recoup some of your money that maybe you spent on the mods. But if you have the budgets to do it, it's really worth keeping this for later. You never know when you might need it or when the next owner might need it or appreciate it. Now, before we drop this new guard on, you'll notice we need to add some pickups, so let's do that. Big appreciate that these are all labeled. I bought sets of pickups in the past where they didn't label what's what. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna use this guitar for yet. One of my main ideas is probably to set this up in a lower tuning, like C-sharp standard with conversation piece. It's always nice to have a hardtail Strat in a live situation, since I'm not a big whammy bar guy. So either get used for that, or maybe we'll just use it in standard as a different flavor, as a hardtail Strat does definitely sound different than a typical Strat with a tremolo. I don't know, we'll have to see what its strengths are when it's together, and then it'll find its purpose. Which is probably not the way you should be acquiring guitars. You should buy a guitar for a purpose. Given the luxury I have, we'll see what it does best. At this point, I've nearly memorized how to wire a Strat, but I still always look at the diagram just to make sure that I'm not doing something stupid, as it's easy to make stupid mistakes. I will say, the wiring I'm using, you do get a bridge tone pot, so we like that. Usually you just get the neck in the middle, but not here, not today. For now, we're just tinning the wires as you need to do, so they will stay where we put them. And, probably gonna trim this one back. That's definitely not required to kind of zip tie this stuff. That just kind of, it makes it a little tidier. It makes things a little easier for taking the whole guard in and out. But it can be annoying later because when you take the zip tie off, potentially easily end up accidentally cutting into the wires, which is not ideal to say the least. Really excited to try these pickups out. As when I was talking to Jimmy about these and telling him kind of what I was into, what I was maybe not into as much, these kind of seem like a great fit just because I like vintage style stuff, but I tend to like a little bit hotter Strat pickups. And anytime we get like a 60s reissue, I tend to prefer that over a 50s reissue once we kind of get them under the microscope. So I don't know, everything in these added up to something I should really enjoy. So I'm really eager to actually try these. I don't know exactly what to expect, but I think these will be great. Now that our guard is ready to go, let's solder on these last few points from the guitar. Small pro tip here, but even with new pots, sometimes a shot of deoxit will go a really long way. It's a lot easier to do now than if we were to put this all together, put strings on it, and then realize there's like a little bit of crackle. We've got the new pickguard on, and everything's sitting nicely, so far so good. This looks so much better than that pearloid pickguard. So I'm just tapping on the pickups with something metal, in this case, screwdriver, softly, and just making sure as we move the switch that it is affecting the pickups that it's supposed to. And so far so good. Now that we've got pickups installed, everything's working great, it's time to swap over to the locking tuners. Now, anytime you can, when you want to change tuners, if you can find drop-on replacements, that is definitely the best route to go. A, it's a way easier install, no drilling, no anything like that. And B, if you want to go back to the old tuners, there's no reason not to. There's no extra holes, there's no evidence that the tuners were ever changed. So that's one thing where you could put locking tuners on it, and then if you want to go back to your regular original tuners, that would not take away from its originality. Obviously, it's totally understandable if you do want to put on a different style tuner that requires a bit of drilling. That's not something that's going to majorly affect the value, but it will definitely affect things a little bit, especially on a vintage guitar. On a more modern guitar, it might decrease the value the slightest bit, but on a vintage piece, it may actually make a decent difference if it's otherwise original. If you wanted to go super overkill, you could obviously get a whole nother neck that's already routed for the right style tuner. Like if you want to do a vintage style tuner, maybe you might want a vintage style neck as well, and this is a more modern style neck, that's not gonna work. Maybe you would buy a whole vintage style neck and put that on. And then once again, when you're ready to go back, if you are ever ready to go back, the old neck is waiting for you. I think that scenario is really overkill, so I don't know why we'd be going that far, but you never know. But people love B-roll. Oh. Yeah. The locking tuners haven't dropped on. I went ahead and cleaned up the fretboard and the frets a little bit. Obviously our electronics taken care of, so the only thing left to do is to put this together and put some strings on it and see what it sounds like. Google was like, yes, it's featuring him. And then I looked it up everywhere else and there was no like...
Well, but then no one, you would never know because people would just be in the studio and...
Oh, yeah. First impressions, these pickups are amazing. These are some of the most like rich sounding Strat pickups, and they're also like high output without being too high output, which I really enjoy. Like I said, I like hot pickups, but I don't necessarily want like a modern sound, at least for this project, and I think these do that very, very well. I don't know, I was just impressed out the gate how different every position sounds. Obviously on any Strat, each position is gonna sound quite different, but I felt these really exaggerate kind of what I want out of each position, which I really like. And the 2 and 4 is pretty fire. But yeah, bridge pickup is nice and bright while still retaining a good bit of mids, and the neck pickup is nice and mellow, kind of exactly how I want. And to be honest, what surprised me most was how usable the middle pickup is, because with some Strats, you know, it's a cool sound, but it's one you don't use a lot. But I could definitely see myself using the sound from just the middle a good bit. So far, so good. All right, so final thoughts on both this guitar and modding your guitar. Let's talk about this first. I think this is a pretty simple but tasteful modification to kind of make this more of something I would actually play, which if you're in a position like this where you already have a guitar and it's cool, but if you just changed a few specs, you would use it a lot more, I would say go ahead and mod your guitar. I'm really happy I did it with this one, and I think this is gonna get lots of use for many years to come. And maybe at some point I'll wanna go back to humbuckers on this, and I have that option whenever that time comes. I'm happy I did this. This is a win so far. And also, these pickups have definitely exceeded expectations, so very grateful I was able to snag these, and I think that they kind of complement this guitar perfectly. Overall, should you mod your guitar? I would say yes. If you want to mod your guitar, it's your guitar. Do whatever you want with it. You don't need my approval or anyone else on the internet. So many discussions lately I've been seeing people, you know, posting, should I do this, should I not? It's your thing at the end of the day. If you want to change parts, you want to make the guitar your own, I think you should. If it's what inspires you to play, then you should do it. That's what this is all about. Stop worrying about resale value. You know, there's more to life and playing than that. Do what makes you want to play, and I think that that's best. While you do that, there's a few things you can do to retain the resale value, as we discussed in the video, but overall, it's your instrument. Do whatever you want with it. If you have done any cool mods to your guitars, please let us know down below in the comments. We would love to hear the stories and see what you guys are working on. I know I always love a good project, and sometimes you end up with something that's way better than what you started with for, you know, what you're working on at that time. And me, I think that definitely happened in this case. If you like what we're doing here, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share the video, and all that good stuff. It really does help out. Thank you guys for watching as always, and we will see you in another video soon. Bye. One more thing I want to plug real quick. The Dallas Guitar Show is coming up from May 2nd to May 4th. Definitely come by our booth and say what's up if you are coming out. We're really looking forward to it. If you like these pickups, go check them out at the Jimmy Wallace booth. He's gonna have a lot of stuff, I would assume. Every time that we have done the show, he's had an absolutely massive booth with a ton of really great guitars, everything from vintage to modern custom shop stuff to some luthier built stuff, as well as his own Jimmy Wallace guitars. So definitely go check out his guitars and pickups and whatever other treats he brings. Yeah. We'll see you guys there. If you enjoyed this video, we've got a lot more you should check out, and you can watch another one right here.
Perfect.
Great.